Hi, this is Kyle with Icon Poly, and today we're going to talk about making a urethane mold. So here we have a clay sculpture of a wolf, and the two guys are prepping it to put on the mold rubber. Now this sculpture has been pre-prepped before this by spraying a layer of just simple shellac over the clay. We found that shellac over the clay, it's bullseye shellac, we found that that works pretty good because it seals the clay. So if you have any clay that might have sulfur in it, then this only happens when you're working with silicones, and this is a urethane, so it really doesn't matter. But if there's clay with sulfur in it, you can seal that with shellac. So, and also holds release well. So what they're doing here is they're releasing this with silicon-based mold release. It's a Polytech 2300 is what they're using right here. And you notice they're spraying it on and they're brushing it on. That's extremely important. So you want to apply a layer of spray, brush, another layer of spray, then brush. And once you get it all done, then you can move to this step. And they're about ready to start putting the rubber on. So he's mixing the rubber, and this is a Polytech product as well. It's a Polytech 7445 urethane. Now you just saw him put some pigment in it. That's because the video is a little bit out of whack. This would be the second layer. The first layer, the Polytech 745, has a yellow pigment to it. Here he's actually prepping the second layer. That's why he put the pigment in it. We put the pigment in it, and it's just that's a smooth on UV pigment. We do that so you can see where you're putting the rubber on. It's really that simple. So here what you're seeing him do is in that 7445, he's mixing a polypropylene fiber in there. Now it's a thickening agent as well as a strengthening agent. So it's a little fiber, and it's a polypropylene fiber. He mixes that in there, and he mixed it in about 5% on the B side, and what it does is it thickens the rubber up without chemically thickening it, so it'll hold the surface. So now you can see that they're just applying the rubber to the mold released clay sculpture. He's using a 2-inch chip brush, nothing fancy, and he's applying this 7445 with about 5% of a polypropylene fiber in it. Now what he's doing here, you notice there's no shim lines on it, and we're going to show you that here in a minute. We actually learned this at a foundry, and I'm sure everybody else knows this by now, but we learned that if we put the first layer on with no shim lines, and we can put the shims in the rubber, and then when we're removing the piece, we just cut through that last little layer of rubber, and then we get a nice finish when we're done. We don't have as much flashing. So he's got the first layer on, and now we always blow out our layers with air. We use 90 psi of air, and he blows over it, and it knocks any of those little air bubbles out of it. So here's that shimming that I talked about. Now what we weren't able to show you is he went through before, and he put these we call them shim bubbles. They're lineup bubbles, or whatever you want to, registration bubbles. So he went through and he put those on with the same rubber, the 7445, with a lot thicker, added a lot more polyfibers so it didn't sag at all. And he put these on and then waited about an hour, and then that set up. So now he's going and he's filling in between those with plastic shims. Now I'd like to give you a source for this, and you can search this stuff online, but what we use is a polyester real thin plastic, and we actually cut them ourselves. It comes on a big roll and we cut them ourselves. It's the best thing we've found, the thinnest thing and the strongest thing we've found to do shims. There's a lot of people that use playing cards and aluminum flashing and all that stuff, but this has worked for us, and we don't glue anything. We staple it all. So it's kind of nice and it's efficient because we can go through there and we can shim something pretty fast using this process. So what they're doing is they're just shimming the whole piece and getting ready for the next layer of rubber. Now I've pre-watched this video so I could talk about it, and they missed the next layer. So what they will do here is you'll see the second layer is already on it. So that layer was a little bit thicker than the first layer, and what that does is allows it to fill in the gaps of where the shims are. So now he's just applying another layer, alternating back orange, yellow, orange, yellow, orange, yellow. And that was 5 layers of rubber is what he applied to that piece. So now they are getting ready to apply the mother mold. While we're watching this, it's already being released. So we use the same release agent for the mother mold as we do for the sculpture. So it's already been over the cured rubber. We've already sprayed it with the 2300 silicone mold release. And this product here, what he's putting on is it's a smooth-on product. It's actually a Plastipaste, smooth-on's Plastipaste product. So he's applying a thin layer of this, and we've done this for a lot of years, and we thought we'd show it to people. I'm sure there's other people that do it too. I mean, we're not any smarter than anybody else. So he's applying a really thin layer on this, and what that is, that's a primer layer for a fiberglass reinforced piece. Once he gets that on there, and it's actually a lot thinner than it looks here. He's only going to be putting that on about a 1/16 of an inch thick, maybe an 1/8 in some spots, like in the crotch and stuff. It kind of builds up in there in the corners of the edges. And then you saw the other guy go in there and he put 1x2 blocks all around that shim. We do that because it strengthens it up and it gives us something to bolt through. So now you see that he's applying a chopped fiberglass. Now we chop this ourselves. We have a chopper and we chop these about 1/2 inch out of roving, and then we just rub it on, and that gives us some glass reinforcement. What it allows us to do, because this is a urethane mother mold, it's not a polyester mother mold. So what it allows us to get is a fairly strong mother mold, but it's really light and it's also flexible. You notice he didn't shim around that ear up there. That's because this will flex enough. It holds its shape when we're rotocasting, but it will flex enough to come off of that. So now all he's done is he went around the shim and he mashed the glass in with a brush. You saw that just right before this. And now he's rolling the rest of that glass in. And it's going to roll in and it's starting to absorb into that Plastipaste. So now we have the base down, and now he's moving on to wetting out that glass. And it's pretty simple. That's an RTV urethane. It's nothing special. It's a fast setting urethane, so you'll actually start seeing this thing turn white here. And all he's doing is going through and putting a thin layer on that wets that glass out, and it also bonds it to that Plastipaste. Now that's going to start kicking off, and you can see it here. It's starting to turn white. That's because the urethane kicks to a natural white. And then once that is kicked just enough, we don't want it to cure too much. We go back over it. Now this is the same exact resin that he just used to wet that out. The only thing we do here is we add a microsphere to it. What that allows it to do is it allows us to get us a little thicker piece, and it also, or a little thicker application, and it also smooths out a lot better. So he's covering this up, and it's going to smooth out a lot of that glass and stuff like that, so it's easier to handle. It also adds another little effect to the mold. Okay, that was a brief overview of how we make urethane molds. It's not extremely detailed, but hopefully in the future we can make a more detailed one. If there's a specific section you'd like to ask questions about, please do so. And if you find any of this interesting or you think you can learn something from these videos, please subscribe to our channel.